So we call these special triangles. Now, if you remember similarity, I can scale up that triangle and scale it down, and those angles will still stay 90, 60, and 30, okay? Or 45, 90, and 45. And if you remember similarity, also remember that sides are in proportion. So they will simplify to the same numbers. So even if I did decide to make the numbers bigger than what I'm going to deal with now, they simplify to the same. So I'm going to use the most simplified ratios that go with 30, 60, and 90. So like I said, this triangle, I can make it bigger, I can double the size, but would that double the angles? My angles stay exactly the same, right? So this could be 2, 2 square root 3, and 4. So hold on a second. I think I swapped them around. Yes, I swapped them around. Don't copy that. So it's supposed to be 2 on the hypotenuse, square root 3 on the adjacent. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done it this way. So I'll say it again. I can double it. I can make it 2, 4, and 2 square root 3. I can triple it. I can make it 3, 6, and 3 square root 3. I can make it 5 times greater, 5, 10, 5 square root 3. But all of them will simplify to this most simplest version of the triangle. So we call this a special triangle because if I have a 30 and a 60, these will always be my simplest forms. So sine of 30 would be opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of 30 will always equal a half, no matter the size of that triangle, because it will simplify to 1 over 2. Cos of 30 degrees will always be adjacent over hypotenuse. And again, it doesn't matter how big the triangle is, that ratio, that fraction will simplify to square root 3 over 2. And then tan of 30 degrees would be opposite over adjacent. And that will also simplify to 1 over 3. Changing my reference angle to the 60, sine 60, cos 60, and tan 60. So my reference angle is there now. So opposite is square root 3 over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse, and opposite over adjacent, which is just square root 3. So these we call special angles. We do need you to know how to identify them, and eventually you will know the values, okay? But as long as you can identify them and know that you must change it to the ratios, you can check what the ratios are on the calculator. So if you see a 30 or a 60, you know that is a special angle that has to be converted to one of these values. We'll write a note about that underneath. Now, if I have a triangle with 2 angles equal, what does that tell me about 2 of my sides? They're also going to be equal, okay? What are my sides going to be? My most simplified sides is going to be 1, 1, and square root 2. So even if I make it 4 times bigger, it'll be 4, 4, and 4 square root 2, which will simplify again to 1 square root 2. So these are my most simplest special triangles. Now if I go sine 45 degrees, cos 45 degrees, and tan 45 degrees, would it matter which 45 I use? Would it be different for the other 45? No, so I'm only going to do it once. So sine of 45, here's my reference angle, opposite over hypotenuse. Cos is opposite over hypotenuse, and adjacent is opposite over, tan opposite over adjacent, 1 over 1, which is equal to 1. So those are my special angles, as well as the 90, 180, 270, 360. So the note that we're going to write at the bottom, when we see 30, 45, or 60 degrees with the trig function, we are going to always change it to the special ratios. Always. When we see the 30, 45, 60 with the trig function, always change to the fraction. How do I know what the fraction is? Check on your calculator. For now, but eventually we need to learn it. So I would suggest the best way is to learn the two triangles. Because if you know the triangles, you can do all the functions, right? Don't try and remember 9 different functions. Rather remember the two triangles. And that way you will learn what the special angles and their ratios are. So what do I mean when I say when we see 30, 45, 60 with a trig function, immediately change it? So I'm going to show you what we do with expressions. So it's the first part of what we are doing, what we call reduction, but it's just the first part. We will focus on reduction when I see you next time. Okay? Anyone still writing the note? Okay? Okay, we're done. Okay, so what would this look like as a test question? So we're going to do it as an example. Simplify without a calculator. So that is the indicator that we are probably going to use special angles. Because like I said, special angles can be memorized, therefore calculator is technically not necessary. So you would get something like that, where I'm saying tan 60 degrees, sine 60 degrees times tan 45 degrees divided by cos 30 degrees. So I'm seeing 60, 45, and I'm seeing 30, so immediately I'm changing that function to those special fractions. Eventually you will learn them, but right now we're just going to check what they are. Sine 60 is 1/2. So I change the whole of sine 60 to the equivalent ratio of 1/2. And I'm timesing it with the equivalent ratio of tan 45. Tan 45 was 1. And I'm dividing it by the equivalent ratio of cos 30. Cos 30 was square root 3 over 2. So now it's just a normal simplification sum, right, with fractions. So a half times 1, a half, and I'm dividing by square root 3 over 2, which means I actually have to tip in times. Twos cancel, so I'm left with 1 over square root 3. So that is what we do with special angles. I give you an expression, you substitute in those special fractions, and you simplify as far as possible. Now I'm going to let you do one, and then I'm going to throw in some negative angles and angles greater than 360. Okay, anyone still writing? Okay. Just zoom that out. So your exercise, I want, let's go cos 45 degrees and I want you to square it, so cos squared 45 degrees times sine 30 degrees times tan 60 degrees over, let's say, tan 60 degrees. So I want you to say cos squared 45 degrees times sine 30 degrees times tan 60 degrees divided by tan 60 degrees. That's the one you're trying there. Convert to those special fractions. Remember, normal multiplication rules apply. So you can cancel a numerator and a denominator if fraction rules allows you to. I see way too many of you waiting for me to do it. That's not how we practice maths. I know it's the last period on Friday, but let's give us our last energy of the week. So remember, when I say without a calculator in maths, I want every step written. Thirty more seconds. Okay, the first thing I did was I changed each one of them to their fraction. Okay, so there it is. Cos 45 is 1 over square root 2. And that is squared, so I left the square there. Sine 30 is a half. Tan 60.
That as we enter into block assessment from next week, moving towards level 1, social distancing is still very much important. Ensuring that you keep your distance, wearing your mask at all times is still expected. We still have a zero tolerance on that. If we see anyone not wearing their mask, not sticking to social distancing, you will still be sent home immediately. This is non-negotiable. Please also note that as we enter into block assessment, that means that you may not have your cell phone on you in a venue. We ask that you make alternative arrangements. The times have been set to all parents, so all parents should be aware of what time you should be fetched from school. So that means no cell phones in classrooms or exam venues. And also to note, please, that there can be no earphones in your ears or hanging next to your ear. It needs to be packed away as well. As I've already said, all parents would have received information with regards to assessments going forward, so please ensure that you ask your parent to clarify where you are screening on the days that you are at school. Kindly note that for grade 8, group 1, you are all screening on the tennis courts as well as group 1 for grade 9. Group 2 for grade 8 and 9 will be screening in the hall quad.
Yes, Rebecca?
Please also note that RCL nominations will start next week. If you would like to pick up a nomination form, you can do so at B21 at the end of day. And then please, staff, just take note, the ladies' staff bathroom is out of bounds as the plumbers are now there for half an hour. Right, we wish you well for your assessments. We ask that you take this seriously, that you put in the effort that you have been putting in so that you can get the results you're looking forward to getting. Have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, so tan 60 is square root 3 over 1. Tan 60 square root 3 over 1. Since I have all multiplication, I can divide. I can cancel those two. It's not us yet. So it's 1 squared is 1, square root 2 squared is 2, and I still need to times the half. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I did all of that. The only thing I kept checking was this, because I have forgotten my special ratios, which is actually quite embarrassing. Okay? That's the only thing you should have been doing on your calculator, is checking what those fractions are. Every single other thing has to be shown to me as part of my answer. Rebecca, your question. So because I'm multiplying, I prefer to do it especially with that square. Everything else, not really, no. Okay, so now remember, when you come back in 3 weeks' time, we're going to add negative angles to this. We're going to add now 80, 90, 360 and greater than 360. And we're also going to add a new thing which you haven't seen yet. So it's going to get more complex. Okay, I wish you all the luck for next week. Please use the WhatsApp group. Next week, Tuesday at 12:30, I will do an online Teams lesson for revision for that test. So hopefully by then you have already studied and you're asking your questions. Okay, Daniel, did you have a question? So all the grade 10s are being screened on the tennis courts. If you are coming in for session 2, then you go to the D-wing courts. Okay.